Right, so to make our little guy, we are going to need a few things. We are going to need a brown yarn in a nice chocolatey colour. You're not going to need a great deal of any of these, so this is the one that you will need the most of. And so it is a brilliant scrap yarn project. You will also need some white or some off-white, or the colour that you want to use for the icing and for his face. You're also going to need little scrap balls of a couple of different colours. Now these are for the decoration and the Smarties, as you've seen on my one. You are literally only going to need a tiny little bit, because you're only going to be making a few little Smarties to go on top in each colour. So raid that scrap bin. Really, raid the scrap bin. Right, so let's move these out of the way. And you're also going to need, as I'm working in a DK yarn, I am using a 3.5mm hook. I'm going to need my darning needle. I'm also going to need a keychain or something really nice to be able to attach it to my bag. And then of course I need my scissors, which I've lost on my table yet again. Right, so those are the items that you definitely need. You could do with some stitch markers as well, or a piece of scrap yarn in an opposing colour to whichever one you're working in at that point in time. Right, so let's get on with making the main body, which is this section here. Let's get on with making this bit. You're also going to need some stuffing. Ooh, fluffy, fluffy stuffing. Right, so let's get started. Taking your hook and your yarn, we are going to make a slip knot in whatever method you prefer. Then we are going to chain up 2. Into this second chain from the hook, we are going to place 6 single crochets. Right, so once you have done those 6 single crochets, we are going to take either a stitch marker or a scrap of yarn. I like working a scrap of yarn because it means if I lose count, I've just got to count up the side of my work. Now for round 2. With round 2, count back around your work until you find your very first stitch, so count back 6. Pop your hook into that stitch, making sure that you pick up both parts of your work, or your little V, depending on what you want to call it. Hook over, pull through, hook over, and pull through for your first stitch on the first round. Now with this round, it is an increase round, which means that there is 2 single crochets in each stitch. Now as you go in, you may wish to also work over your yarn tail. Saves a little bit of sewing in at a later point. Once you've finished that, you will have a stitch count of 12. Now on to row 3. For this one, weave your white yarn or your mark, move your marker up, making sure you get into that very first stitch. We're going to place a 1 stitch in this one and then an increase in the next. and that is the repeat for the whole round. So it's like working a hat. Okay, so it is one stitch followed by an increase in the next, and we do that and repeat that all the way to the end of the round. And you should end with a double crochet. Now your work should be looking something like this. Okay, now move your marker up or weave it back. Okay, and we will start on to round two. For this one, we are going to be placing a single stitch in the next 2 stitches, followed by an increase, and that is your pattern all the way around. So that is a single, followed by another single, followed by an increase, or as I say, 1, 2, and then 2 together. And when you get to the end of this round, you'll be ending on an increase. And there we go. Right, and now for round 5. So weave your yarn back a lot behind again. Pop your hook in the first stitch. And our pattern for this one is stitch 3 and then increase. That's 3. And you end with an increase. There we go. So if this is your first time amigurumiing, how are you finding it? I find this section very similar to making a hat. Right, so now we are on to round 6. We are now no longer increasing. Okay, we are going to just be working into our back loop only. Right, come on, camera focus. Right, so for the back loop only, you have your little V here, and all you're going to do is place your hook through the top and out through the back, hook over, pull up, and do your single stitch as normal, and you're going to do that all the way around for a count of 30. There we go. So, and now what we're going to do is, in my case anyway, I'm going to take out my marker, and I'm now going to move it up because this next section is super duper easy. We are just going to be going round and round and round and round until you get to row 22. So for rows 7 through to 22, it is just a single crochet in each round. So this is where the yarn works best for us. Now, to start off with, for this round, you're going to have to make sure that you go through both parts of your stitch again. Okay, oh, get it out of the way. There we go, both parts on this round, and of course both parts on all the future rounds. Okay, so we're just going to keep going round and round and round until you get to row 22. I'll do this one round with you, and then I will meet you once we have rows 7 through to 22 complete, because I know you're perfectly capable of doing those. It's just round and round and round. Right, I will see you back here once you've finished going round and round and you've got to row 22. Right, okay, so you have gone round and round and round and round and you've completed up to row 22. So for row 23, we are going to be working in the back loop only again, and we are going to do that all the way around for a stitch count of 30. So quick reminder, back loop only is a look at your V and you go in the back loop and you go downwards, pick up your yarn, come through and finish off your stitch. So we're going to do that all the way around. Okay, and meet me back here when you're finished. Right, so now we are on to row 24. So for this one, it is our very first decrease round. I will show you how to do the decreases as we get to them. So what we're going to do to start off with is 3 single crochets, or should I say single crochet over the next 3. Now we're going to do our decrease. Let's bring this up, hope it auto focuses, and there we go. Now I can't see what I'm doing at all. Right, so what we're going to do is we are going to be working in the front loop over the next 2 stitches. Okay, so to pick up our front loop, we go from the bottom through to the middle, and then again from the bottom through to the middle on the second stitch. So you'll have 3 loops on your hook. Then we hook over and you pull through 2, then hook over and pull through 2 to finish off your stitch. Now we're going to do another 3 stitches over the next 3 spots, followed by another decrease. So again, from the bottom of the stitch through the front loop only on the first, and the front loop only on the second. 3 loops on our hook, hook over, pull through 2, hook over and pull through 2. By doing it this way, it gives you an invisible decrease, so your stuffing will not show through. Now we're going to carry on doing the same pattern all the way around until we get to the end. So that is 3 stitches followed by a decrease. Okay, I will meet you back here when you're finished. Now for this round, your last stitch should be a decrease. Now if it turns out that you do not have a decrease, and then you're going to need to count your stitches, and your stitch count should now be a 26, and your stitch count should be 24. If you've got more than that, it means that what you've done is on your decrease, the first stitch after your decrease, you will have actually placed that in the wrong spot. You'd have placed it in the second part of the decrease. I hope that makes sense. But as long as your stitch count's okay, and let's get on with row 25. So for row 25, we are going to be doing the same as row 24 nearly, but changing the numbers. We are doing 2 single crochets, or a single crochet in the next 2 stitches, followed by our decrease. Okay, so let's bring that up so you can see that a bit better. We're going to be doing 2 stitches followed by our decrease. There we go, and we're going to repeat that pattern all of the way around, and you should end up on a decrease, and your stitch count should now at the end of this row be 18. Right, so you will end your last bits of stitch on this one. Right, so your last stitch on this row of course is a decrease, and now pull up your yarn, because at this point we are going to grab that chunk of stuff in, and we are going to stuff the body of our caterpillar. So just grab some and just stick it in the owl. Now either rest your work on a table, or what I normally do is have it resting on my little finger. That way I can push against my little finger and I know I'm not going to overstuff it. Okay, so you just stuff it until you've put in what you feel is the right amount. Now what I also like to do is, as I do it, I put my hole into the middle and I make a well, like you would if you were baking a cake. You make a well, that means then that my stuffing seems to work out that it goes around a bit more evenly. And then when I come to stuff the next bit in, I shove that bit into the well and then work out from the well. Okay, so we just keep going. I'm going to need some more. I'm going to need quite a bit actually. There we go, we're getting into it now. And then once you've got what you feel is enough stuffing in there, give it a little wiggle round on your hands to make sure that it's, you can feel then if there's any missing bits, if that makes sense. And then pop your stuffing in, and then grab your hook again and grab your yarn, pull your loop back onto your hook so it's nice and tight again. And now we'll work on to row 26. So for this one, our pattern repeat is stitch 1 and then decrease. Right, so these next 2 rounds are the fiddly rounds, because you're going to need to make sure that you poke your stuff in out of the way of your hook as you're working. But it's not too difficult, just use a finger and stab it out of the way. Right, so for round 26, what we're going to do is place a single crochet into the first stitch, and then remember an invisible decrease into the next 2 stitches. As I said, it is a little bit finicky, you'll get used to it. And I'm not cutting this bit out, I'll show you me struggling. There we go. And then that is our pattern repeat all the way around. So it is a single crochet 1 and decrease 1. I'll show you that again. Single crochet 1, decrease 1. We do that all the way round, and I will meet you back here in a few moments. And your last stitch on this round will be a decrease. Okay, So, and now on to round 27. So for round 27 we are going to just decrease, and we will decrease a total of 6 times round. Okay, so that is, there's number 1. I will meet you back here in a few moments to finish off this round. Okay, so your very last stitch, of course, is the double crochet pants. Right, so your very last stitch, of course, was a decrease. So now you will have 6 little stitches in a little circle. So at this point, we hook over, pull through our yarn and pull up enough to sew in our ends. Oh, cut off your yarn. Okay, and pull up. Now take out your stitch markers. Give it a little bit of a jiggly wiggly again. Now pop your working yarn onto your darning needle. Now we are going to close up our round. So to do this, what we're going to do is we are going to pick up the front loop of each of these 6 stitches and just pop our needle through. Let's try that, shall we, with the yarn in it. Sometimes I forget to count, so I end up doing 7, but it doesn't really matter. If anything, I quite like the extra 7th. Okay, and then once you've got all those looped in, we gently pull our yarn and it will close the gap. Okay, now it's up to you if you want to pop in an extra sneaky bit of a knot. Just hold it in, it's not a problem. We are going to be putting the face over this end. Okay, so if your decreases aren't overly neat, don't worry. Okay, and just the same if your ending skills are not too brilliant, just stick a knot in it. We're shoving the face on top. Right, so now what we do is we grab our yarn and we poke it through our needle through. Okay, now if you want to, you can run it all the way through to the bottom, bring it up through the middle and then pop it back down and bring it back through again, just to give you a little your guy a little chance of keeping his butt in rather than having a sticky out butt if you've overstuffed. But I've been quite lucky, so I'm just going to hide my yarn. And then once that's done, and just cut off any excess that I don't need. There we go. And that, my dears, is the body done. See, this Amigurumi lark isn't too bad, is it? Right, let's move on to the feet. Right, so here we are. Now it's time to make our feet. Now we need to make 6 of these. Okay, so I'm only going to show you how to make 1, and then we'll put a little stamp down here with the time so that you know what number to skip it back to. Okay, so these are the little feet, and they're going to go on the top, middle and bottom of him when we put him together. So I've only got 5, so I need to make my 6th. So let's get on with the feet. Right, so now taking your white, off-white or your icing colour, and of course the same hook size, and what we're going to do is make ourselves a slip knot and pop it on your hook. Now we're going to chain up 2, and into the second chain from the hook we are going to place 6 single crochets. Right, so once you've finished that, our next round is working in the back loop only. Okay, so pick up your back loop only and place a stitch in that one and a stitch in the next one. Now into this third stitch we are going to place a back loop only increase. Okay, now that is our pattern throughout, so that is 2 back loop onlys followed by a back loop only increase. We do that all the way around. And you will end with an increase in that back loop. Okay, so for the next round what we will now be doing is a single crochet through both loops all the way around for a count of 16. Okay, so this first one is sometimes a bit of a pain to get into, so that's why I tilt my hook the way I have, but once through you're okay to work it. Right, so as I said, all the way around for a count of 16, making sure you get both loops. Okay, so and now you have finished those 16, we are on to round number 5. Now round number 5, and listen carefully to this one, there is a bit of a weird pattern to it, but you should hopefully pick it up. So the very first 4 stitches we are going to place a single crochet into. Okay, so it looks like that. And then the next 2 stitches we are going to place a decrease. So to do our decreases we are going to use the invisible decrease. So for this one you pick up the front loop only, going from the bottom and out through the middle of the next 2 stitches, so it will look like that. Okay, then we're going to hook over, pull through our yarn, hook over and pull through 2. So let me show you that again. On the next 2 you are going to go through in the middle of the next 2, picking up those front loop only, hook over, pull through 2, hook over and pull through 2. Okay, we're going to do that a total of 4 times. Okay, so once you have them, you should have 4 stitches remaining, and we're just going to place a single crochet in each of those 4. Now for a row number 6. For row number 6, and this one is a stitch followed by a decrease. So that is a stitch 1, decrease 1, and repeat that pattern all the way around. Stitch 1, decrease 1. And you should end up with a decrease as your last stitch. Now for the next rows, which are 7 through to 10, we are going to just stitch all the way around. What I suggest you do is a row 7 and then stuff your foot a little bit. So I will meet you back here to stuff and see you in a moment. Right, so I'm now at the end of row number 7, so I'm going to pull up my yarn. I'm actually going to take out my stitch marker just for a moment. I'm going to stuff this little foot with some wadding. So let's pop that in. Once I think I've got enough in there, I will cut the excess off for now. Don't panic, I have my hands over my work. Right, let's poke that little extra bit in. Make sure it's pushed down and out of the way because we're going to be working into the stitches again. If you look here, you should be able to see that the foot is starting to form. Right, so and now I'll pop your working yarn back on your hook. Grab your stitch marker or your piece of thread. Okay, and now we're going to carry on working round from a row, making a row 8 through to row 10. Okay, once you've managed to complete your row 10, meet me back here and I'll show you how to close up your foot. So now we're at the end of a row 10. At this point we've just got to add a little bit more stuffing into our foot and its little sock, and then we're all ready to close up. This bit's a little bit more tough because the hole is a little bit smaller, which is why I suggested doing the double stuff method, as I like to call it, or should I say the stuff as you go. Right, once you think you've got enough in there, and tidy it off so you can see what you're doing. And our next section is super nice and super easy. There we go, get out of the way. Right, so for this next section we are going to do a decrease over the next 2 stitches, and we're going to do that twice. Okay, so that's decrease number 1, then in again for decrease and number 2. There's me saying it's easy and I can't even find the stitch. Right, there we go. Okay, so once those 2 are done, you're just going to bring up your yarn, leaving yourself enough of a tail to be able to sew it in. I was actually playing yarn chicken with this one, gang. And I won. Right, so to sew in at the ends, all we need to do is pick up the front loop only of each stitch all the way around. Okay, so there should be 6. And then what we do is we just pull our yarn down, and that is it, closed. Now I also like to be a bit naughty and add an extra little stitch in with a knot attached, or nearly knot I should say. Okay, and just to make sure that it is secure. And then what we're going to do is give it a little wiggle, get your stuff in and sit in where you want it to be. Pop your darning needle through the center of the top and out through the side. Now the side will depend on which side you want this foot to sit. Okay, so the side that comes out is the side that's going to be attached to your work. And once that's done, that is your little foot all complete. So the timing you're going to need to be able to skip back to will be written just here. I can't tell you it verbally as I haven't done the first part of the video yet. Oops. So now it's time to make the face. For this one you're going to need the same hook you've used throughout, and you're going to need your white icing or the icing colour that you have chosen for the feet and the extra details. And then we're going to make a slip knot and pop it on our hook. Now we're going to we are going to chain up 2. In that second chain from the hook we are going to place 6 single crochets. Then we are going to count back 6 to find our first stitch and pop your hook through. And now for round number 2. For round number 2 we will be increasing into each stitch. Okay, so now grab your stitch marker or your piece of scrap yarn and pop that in play. Now what you want to do is count back 6 to find that very first stitch. Pop your hook through. And it's time to work on to round number 2. So for round number 2 it is an increase round, so we will be placing 2 single crochets into each stitch around. You'll have done that for a count of 6, which will give you a total stitch count of 12. Now for the next row we will be placing, of course, our first stitch in here, and our second stitch is an increase. And we will repeat that pattern all the way around. So it's stitch 1, increase, and you will end with an increase. Now for round 3, we are going to flip that marker up or over, and our stitch pattern for this one is stitch 2 followed by an increase. So again, that's stitch 2 followed by an increase, and we're going to do that all the way around. Ending in an increase. Okay, and your work should look something like that. Now for the next part of this pattern, we are going to be making his little bumpy bits or ears. Okay, so the pattern is not worked in the round from this point on. Right, so let's start off with a stitch of stitch 4. Now we are going to chain 1 and turn, and we're going to stitch we are going to place a stitch in these 4 stitches, working our way back. Okay, now chain 1 and turn your work, and again work 4 stitches along. Now chain 1 and turn your work and do another 4 stitches along. Now this row is different to what you've been used to working, so chain 1 and turn. Now we're going to do 2 decrease stitches. For this one we're going to go through the whole stitch, pull up a loop, go through the second stitch, pull up a loop, hook over and pull through all 3 loops on your hook. So we'll do that again. Go through, pick up your yarn, pull it through, go into the next one, pull up your yarn, hook over and pull through all 3. Now we are going to work down the side of the ear. Okay, so to do that we are going to just stab it in there and we're going to do that for a count of 4. 1, 2, 3 and 4. Now we are going to work across our work here for a count of 7. 1, now chain 1 and turn your work. We are going to work back along these stitches for a count of 4. Chain 1 and turn. Let's work back through these again for another count of 4. chain 1 and turn. Work back through these stitches for a count of 4. And chain 1 and turn. Now we are going to do 2 decreases over the next 4 stitches. So pop your hook in, pull up your yarn on the first stitch, pop your hook into the second, pull up your yarn. Now finish off your stitch, and we're going to do that again on the next 2. Now I'll work down the side for a count of 4. Now we are going to work a single crochet all the way around our work for a count of 15. Now that brings us back to this ear. Now at this point you can either cut off or you can run a slip stitch up and around this section. I like to run a slip stitch. So I pop my hook through and just pull through. Okay, and I will do that up the side of the work as well for a count of 4. Across the top for a count of 2. And down the other ear for a count of 4. Across the top for a count of 3. Up the next ear for a count of 4. Across the top for a count of 2. And down the ear for a count of 4. Okay, and then run it all the way around for a count of 15. By doing that, it gives you a nice neat edge all the way around your work, and it makes it easier to sew it on to the body of your caterpillar. Once you get back to the ear, pull up your yarn, give yourself enough so that you've got plenty there to be able to sew it to the body, and then cut off any that's left that you don't need. And that is it. And that is your base of your face done. Right, so and now it's time to make the little pops of colour on the top Okay, we'll nickname these Smarties for now. Okay, and this is what they're going to look like once you've made them. Don't worry too much about the messiness of it, because you can sew in your short end, which is the section in the middle, and then your long end I would suggest you leave, so that you've got plenty to sew it on to the body of your caterpillar. Right, and you're going to need possibly 2 of each colour, but it's up to you how many colours you choose and how many you make. Right, so to make this, what you're going to do is grab your hook that you've been using throughout, and you're going to grab the yarn colour of your choice. Now we are going to make a slip knot, pop our hook on and chain up 2. In your second chain from the hook, you're going to pop your hook through and you're going to make a single crochet, and at this point we are going to keep going back into that loop to make more single crochets. You need to do 8. So once you have those 8 single crochets into that loop, we are going to count back, find the very first one, pop our hook through and do a slip stitch join. Okay, hook over and pull up your yarn, give yourself enough to sew in. Okay, and then we're just going to scooch down our knot, and that's it, all done. Really quick, really simple. Off you pop to make some more. I will see you shortly. Right, so and now to add on the stripes of icing. So for this one, what you want to do is find the bottom of your work, so that's where that little skip up is. Okay, and a couple of rows down, wherever you fancy putting it, pop your hook through at an angle so it just goes between the stitches like that. Then grab your yarn, fold in your yarn over, make sure that there is a really nice length of a doubled up yarn, because that's what we're going to be working with, doubled up. Okay, so pull that through, and then going into the side of that stitch and coming up the next one, you pop your hook through, hook over and pull your yarn through, and then pull it through that little loop on your hook. Okay, now I believe this is called surface crochet, but I'm not 100%. Right, so now we are going to go back down where we came out of, under the next loop, and grab your yarn, pull it through and pull it through the next stitch. Try and keep this a little bit loose, they don't have to be too tight. Okay, and we're just going to keep repeating that, following the line of stitches all the way around. If you skip a stitch, it doesn't matter too much, because hey, it's made by us. Okay, and we just keep going all the way around. When you get nearly back to the start again, when you get round here, meet me about 2 or 3 stitches before you'd finish. Right, so you're back with me. We've got 2 stitches left. So at this point, what I like to do is I will drop down a stitch. Okay, drop down a row for my stitch, and then, because it's the very last one, pull up my yarn, pull it through. Okay, now grab my darning hook. Now this is where we hide the yarn in clear sight, but it's hidden. Okay, so we go underneath this very first V and we pick up both parts. Okay, and pull your yarn through, and then we pop our hook, our needle into the middle of this one here, this stitch here. So pop it through and then pull up your yarn where you feel comfortable it being. Okay, pull it through, make sure they're nice and tight, and oh look, it's invisible. Do you know where it finished? Because I'm lost. So now it's a case of popping in a row here, a row sort of centre-ish, and then a row equally at the other end. If you're not that keen on simple stripe, you can weave backwards and forwards if you like. The choice is solely yours. Right, let's move on to attaching the face. Right, so and now it's time to add your face. Now, of course, you can add your face however you like and to look however you want it to. Okay, for me, I am going to do a simple weave around for a smiley face. There we go, there's his little smile. Now I'm going to come up through the middle to do his button nose. Now he's a cheeky little eyes. I wanted to keep my face looking very simple, as of course it was meant to be made with icing. So there we go, and there is my cheeky little face. Okay, so and now it is time to assemble some of the parts. First of all, we're going to attach his little face. Now to attach his little face onto the body, what you want to do is find your start and find your back end. Now if you decide one of them looks neater than the other, then the face is going to go over the other end. So for me it is going over the butt. Okay, so I mucked up again. I've recorded the wrong bit. In other words, I thought I'd recorded and I hadn't. So when attaching the face, what you want to do is just work around picking up the stitch. Let's turn it that way. The stitch just here. Okay, and then going through your face. Okay, so it's coming in at the lowest possible point you can. Okay, and picking up that corner stitch and then stitching round, and then I have stitched through at this point, through the face, picking up the same areas. Okay, then I'm back in to the top again to work the top to the top of the tube, and then I'm back through the ears again, and then all the way around to the bottom. Sorry, I can't show you how to do this one because I haven't got another one free. Now it's time to sew on your buttons. These can go wherever you like, okay? So whether you go up and over, like I have done on here, or whether you go in, choice is yours. So the simplest way I've found to do it is to just hold it on. You go up and under the stitch in your work, and then grab your front loop of the stitch. There we go. And just go around the outside of your button. And it's that simple. So I'm going to leave you to put all of the buttons on that you've created. Now remember, you can add as many as you like, or not add any at all. Maybe use some really cute little small buttons, or some beads, or just run your thread backwards and forwards and make it look like hundreds and thousands. Right, I'm going to carry on with this off camera. I'll see you shortly. Now I decided my little guy looked a bit strange without realise, so I have actually put realise on him before attaching his face, so that all of the safety section sat behind the main body. So here he is. Here is my completed one. I'm not adding a key ring to him because I'm going to be giving him to Liam, so I will actually be taking the safety eyes off again. But as I said, I will be giving him to Liam, so he is definitely going to get some testing done on how much he can survive. I really hope you enjoyed this little project. Now please remember, this is more for ideas on how he can look. You can have as much fun as you want with this pattern, and I would absolutely love to see your little bag charms when you're finished. So remember, send me an email so I can show them off on a future whips and bits. Right, I'm going to head off now. I will see you all really soon. Please stay in and please keep safe. Ta-ra for now, everyone.